Dude, sometimes all the entertainment I need is just to listen to the multiple personalities in my head fight over shit. Like, my neighbor guy will comment on something about my appearance. Oh, like your hair. And the activist in me is all like, didn't nobody teach you about feminism? And the confident part of me is all like, you think you are that you can step to me, scrub? And then the insecure part of me is all, God, he thinks, he likes my... That insecure part that the feminist in me is actually really against, because, hey, sometimes feminists have internalized patriarchy the most, and they're fucking assholes always trying to down you for wanting to take a compliment. Second wave shit. Patriarchy. It's a shamed if you do, shamed if you don't type of situation. Alright, this is the part of the show where the bracelets come off. Lauren, always with me. And today I want to talk about something related. Lauren, which is people who say I love you and mean I own you. People who are like, I love you like I own you. Or people who are like, I love you, that means you owe me. Now, love is a beautiful thing, right? But relationships are tricky and sticky as fuck. What's the deal with that? I know in the big picture, on a higher dimension of being, that polarity doesn't exist, or at least doesn't look the same. But down in this dimension, that shit is a pretty persistent illusion. The ancients say that the polarity of love is fear, so that in a spiritual sense, we're always either acting from love or fear. And in a similar harmonic in an octave that's closer to our humanness, this plays out as craving and aversion. Usually, I want to feel good, I don't want to feel bad. In the transcended polarity, energetic matrix moment of the thing, fear and love are somehow always connected in the same breath of being. But social philosophers, at least in the Western tradition, have always weighted towards fear as being primary. That our desire for love comes out of not wanting to die alone. And this is part of the same worldview that says that we're in constant competition with each other, that nature is a survival of the fittest, that it's a dog-eat-dog world. My experience has shown me that it's actually love that's primary. And this is what other civilizations and other times have come to, that love is primary. That first breath of life is pure love. That higher dimensional consciousness that comes to embody matter, that unique blueprint of the universe that comes to experience itself as a self, interacting with other parts of the universal fabric, is pure love that is intrinsically intertwined with pure aliveness, that is a gift that will only exponentially grow as we celebrate and come to expand our sense of self through falling in love with other parts of the isness, other parts of that universal fabric. But when we love and when we are gifted life, it means that we have something to lose. And so from that love, from that sweet gift of life, fear is born. The first time I was in love, I went no holds bar. I went totally open and boundaryless. And I got so hurt. And I hurt him so bad. And the shame and personal pain of it was so strong. I decided that from then on, that love would be about not hurting anyone. That it would be about handling people well and with care, and being good to them. Which sounds good, right? But nah, dude. That's all twisted. It's a wounded misinterpretation of a wound that's only gonna lead to more woundings because it's something that takes us away from ourselves. Let me tell you a simple story. My neighbor, a different neighbor, came home late one night from the bar, and I was hanging out outside of my house. We had like a short conversation that was a little bit flirty. The next time I saw him, he was being super flirty, and I told him my man was coming to visit me, and so I didn't feel like being flirty with him. And dude, he got all pissed at me. All pissed. Like a fucking little whiny ass bitch. How you gonna do me like that? You acted like you liked me. You betrayed me. Ridiculous, right? All like, I'm the woman, so my job is to take care of him through nurturing and submission. Like, I'm there to be an object for him. Like, I'm supposed to say right away, I have a boyfriend, I have a boyfriend. If I have a boyfriend, it's like, whoa, dude, I didn't even try to, like, who are you to think you? All that sort of stuff. Patriarchy again, right? But watch. Because in the invisible and unspoken interactions, there was an agreement proposed to me. And in his reaction, if I'm going to take that on and feel bad about myself, it means that I'm signing on the dotted line of the standard patriarchal agreement field between a man and a woman. And watch, because these things start out so subtle. They start out with these standard scripts that we've been trained to believe. I said I liked you. That means I made myself vulnerable. That means that you're supposed to take care of my vulnerability, which means that you're responsible for my feeling. And you can follow this line of logic all the way to you asked for it because of what you were wearing. You see what I mean? Like that feeling of you asked for it so I can do what I want to you because you're wearing those jeans, because you flirted with me a little or whatever. That seed starts in you led me on. And that seed starts in you hurt me. Because the first seed is, oh, I kind of liked you. The first seed is like, oh, like I have an archetypal fantasy that I'm projecting all the time. That's like a light coming from my star straight through me. And you got in the way of that beam and for a second reflected a possible form that I've been wanting this fantasy to project back to me. And I saw that in you. And it felt to me like love, even though it was probably something a lot more like craving. And out of that love, all of a sudden, is this massive fear. And I'm trying to make you responsible for my fear. I'm trying to make you responsible for my aversion. So that somehow out of love, we get to I own you and you owe me. And maybe it's a little bit easier to dismiss it when it's some random ass neighbor, scrub. But what if it's someone who you actually love too? Because, shoot, when I love someone, I want to love them the way they want to be loved. I want them to feel loved in my presence. That's why I'm loving on them, so that they feel loved. And I've experienced this over and over again. I make that subtle agreement that I'm going to compromise myself because of what feels good in someone else's agreement field of taking care of their fear as opposed to taking care of their love. All of a sudden, I've set that precedent that that's what our love is, that that's what our relationship is going to be. I've made that agreement. And so to change it, to go back into where my true line is, where I'm actually coming from integrity with myself, feels like the harshest thing, feels like unlove, because it's breaking that agreement that I compromised to make in the first place. And I've done this to where all of a sudden I'm in a straitjacket of someone else's fears and jealousies and insecurities, and I'm so far gone from what feels good and loving to me. All because I chose to coddle those same fears and insecurities from the start. Woo! You gotta make your own agreements or patriarchy will make them for you. You gotta make your own agreements or else other people will make them for you. And any hook that you have in worrying about how the other person is gonna feel, about wanting them to still like you, about wanting them to still like think you're good or whatever, all that is a hook that's gonna keep pulling you further and further away from yourself. And trust me, I know when other people don't coddle my fears and insecurities, or when other people just like don't show up the way that I want them to, like when I'm not being loved, man oh man, it hurts like a bitch. Just to say again, it like really, really hurts when you don't get what you're craving. Sometimes it really, really hurts. When other people let you down, when you have to manage your disappointment, when you feel betrayed, when you made yourself vulnerable and someone else didn't make themselves vulnerable, all of that shit hurts so bad, but they don't call it suffering for nothing. And the whole point isn't to baby suffering or to prolong it, but the whole point is to see the pattern and get free. But it's important retraining. It's important to start taking responsibility for our own cravings and aversions. And my hope is that if we can stop putting this on other people and saying that that's what love is, that some new and totally unforeseeable version of love will come out. Some picture of love that I can't even conceive of from my vantage point right now will all of a sudden blossom inside of my relationships. And I know polyamory is real big right now, which is cool, but my friend's partner was trying to pressure her into opening up their relationship into polyamory with the subtle implications that polyamory is a more evolved way of being. If I had to guess, I would say that the most evolved thing is to be in touch with one's true soul desires, and probably polyamory is a step in the liberation of authentic desire. And really, it's about whatever agreements we want to make. And what I'm pushing for is that we have to consciously make those agreements, because the agreement fields themselves are corrupted. There are ghosts and baggage and silent contracts lurking in the agreement fields that we're signing onto with each other all the time. Marriage, for example, is a beautiful thing. A celebration and ceremony of love, that's great. But marriage also has its own morphogenetic field that people become a part of when they choose that agreement. And if they do not claim what that's going to be for themselves, if they don't do a thorough excavation of their associations with marriage, their own unconscious associations with the agreement field of the archetype of marriage, as well as the unconscious aspects of the collective marriage archetype, could potentially enter the field of their relationship. Agreements, especially around love, are mythic aspects. Ancestors, past lives, astrological archetypes, call it what you will. There's a lot lurking in the shadows of our mythic blueprints, of our erotic templates, of the cultural conditioning of patriarchy itself. My friend was telling me this beautiful old world story about how in some ancient civilization, to domesticate a plant, someone would literally marry it. To domesticate an animal, a person would literally marry that animal species, which is where we get the concept present in words like husbandry. She was talking about the beauty and the nobility of marriage, and it made me realize that somewhere in my imagining of marriage, even though I want to do it, even though I'm all for it, some part of me associates it with being trapped. Which is funny because some part of me associates gardening with also being trapped. Some part of me associates gardening with slavery, probably because in most recent history, the times when people have been gardeners, they were also slaves or serfs for someone else. My most recent ancestors who were gardeners were also slaves. Likewise, probably some of my very close ancestors who were women were sold into things like marriages. Marriage literally was a trap for them. So that thread in the tapestry of what I associate with marriage is part of what I need to get to know in order to be able to make a cognizant and aware agreement field. And it's so funny that I keep dreaming up these experiences where I trap myself in agreements that I don't mean to make with these fucking guys I don't even mean to make agreements with. Oh, thank you, dear unconscious, for making me so repeatedly uncomfortable that at long last I get to be aware of you. Nice to meet ya. Interesting, though, because this guy Jack Morin, who wrote this book, The Erotic Mind, that I love, that everyone should read. Read The Erotic Mind, it's the best book ever. He talks about how all the things that turn us on come from past traumas. And I think probably within all the things that we experience, even in subtle nuances of trauma, are also containing deep erotic desires that deepen this really painful pattern of all of these guys who I think I'm just like living life with, turning around and being like, you did me wrong, you dumb slut. There's probably a really deep desire, which I'm pretty sure I know what it is. If you can find what that desire is, then you can use the actual energy of Eros, what Freud called libido, what Reich called orgone energy, and you can just like fuck out that sankara until you ironed your shit out. Equanimity, baby. And now, your moment of zen.